Hey everyone,
Hello.
welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. How's it going, Ryan?
Great. How you doing,
I'm
Joe?
amazing. You wouldn't even believe it if I told you.
Okay, I'll believe you.
Well, good. Well, welcome, guys. I already said welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday, but I'm going to say it again. Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. It's the
We did.
show where that was the third time.
Three's
Uh,
perfection.
it, sometimes it takes three times to get to perfection. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's
Sometimes it takes way more than that.
yes, exactly.
Most of the time.
Sometimes you get it right the first time, and then you do like 27 more takes, and you figure
Yeah,
out that the first one was the best one,
that's true.
and you
That's
go,
true.
"Did I really just do that?"
Yeah.
But
Yep.
anyway, it's the show where we address any issues, challenges you might be having or going through these days, and you can just go ahead and post them in the chat, or you can post them here.
On the website.
This link right here. Feel free to post them. Looks like we've got some already being posted today. And yeah, we do our best to discuss them, maybe walk through them with a little bit of different perspective. We're not professional therapists, and our material is not a substitute for professional counseling. We just want to help you guys out, come up beside you as a friend, and put our arm around you and maybe offer some perspective. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of something, it's hard to see the whole picture. I know that there have been many times when I've been going through a challenge and I'm so blinded by the challenge itself that I can't see the whole picture of how things are working. And sometimes it takes somebody who's outside the situation to just point a few things out, and then it sheds a whole lot of light on the subject, and then it's a little easier to get through. But
Mhm.
we want to wrap that all with some encouragement and love for you guys, because we absolutely love you. We're so glad that you guys are here and with us. And yeah, it's awesome to see you.
Uh-huh.
So,
Oh, congratulations, Haley, on District Honors Choir. That's awesome.
oh yeah, sweet.
That takes a lot of hard hard training and work. So good job.
Yeah, way to go.
Haley, you are really stepping it up.
Mm-hmm.
Also, hi to everybody that's here. Z Ryu. I noticed that you're here. That's awesome. Chris,
Mm-hmm.
Princess, as always, Akil. C to the NL, you're here with me today. Um,
I am, as a matter of
oh,
fact.
Bead is here as well. Um, so yeah, we got a slightly different crowd than our normal. So this is great.
Yeah.
Akil, yeah. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions from the past here on our Don't Worry Wednesday forum, but I don't know if any of them are. I guess there's one from Princess Yellow.
Mm-hmm. There's one from Jack. Oh, you're wondering about people who are
Who are
here.
here though? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Did we do a kills?
that's what I was about to add. And I was like, I think we did. I think we did that one. Um, let me just double check here. Where's Akil's?
A kills. Da, da, da. Oh yeah, I think we did. Yep. And Akil says we did. Okay.
Okay,
Good. Thank you.
good.
So
Um,
checking through the list.
yep.
So Jack would be next, and then very drawn out. If very drawn out is here, and then there are a couple here that are recent posts because I was working on the
hmm
specific questions, so they're on there. And then we've got Princess and Anonymous.
Anonymous.
Yes.
So, Jack, I don't know if you're here or not. Yeah, yeah, we heard about Kayla and her not being able to participate in these for now. We're not quite sure why, but
Mhm.
it is what it is.
Yep. Yep. but I think she's still able to once in a while be at bss.studio. So there is a chat room there for anyone who wants to chat with Kayla. She is sometimes there when she's able to be, and also posting in the forums and stuff some too. So she's still active at bss.studio. But yeah. So anyway, let's see. So if we don't have Jack or very drawn out, we do have Princess.
Right.
Yes. And Princess, you're awesome. Thank you for posting the links, and thank you for posting questions.
Yeah, seriously.
You're awesome.
Yeah, we never asked you to do that, but you started doing it, and we appreciate it.
She did. Yep. She just started, and yep. It goes to show the heart of a lot of the people that are here. Everybody seems to have such a great heart, willing to help others. You watch the comment section. For those of you, if you've not been to a Don't Worry Wednesday, when somebody posts an issue they may be dealing with, the chat just comes alive with people trying to help out, and it's so great. You guys are so wonderful and helpful, and thank you so much for all of that. So we should go through princesses.
It's kind of weird to say.
Princess Yellow's post. Princess says, sleep is an unavoidable need for our body and mind. As I might have told you before, I won't take naps because I've gotten some pretty strong nightmares after taking it. It can be really hard to get past those sometimes. So I was wondering two things for those who out there also suffer from nightmares. Do you have any advice on how to calm yourself down enough and find the courage to try sleeping again? Since I know for many the way to cope is to not sleep until the next absolutely unavoidable time. Do you have any advice on how to not get nightmares anyhow? A dream catcher worked for me until it was lost when we moved. So I don't know if you have any ideas. And that's from Princess Yellow. Thank you, Princess, for posting that. Ryan, do you have any thoughts on the issue of nightmares?
I suppose I do. When I was young, when I was a little kid, I remember having nightmares. And whenever I did, my mom would get me out of bed and she would move me to the living room and she would have me sleep in the living room. I'll tell you that it helped every single time. And I don't know exactly why, but even to this day, if I'm suffering from a nightmare or something, usually I just go back to sleep because I know it's just a dream and it can't really hurt me. But there have been cases where, I go to sleep and then I have a nightmare and I go back to sleep and then it's the nightmare continuing. And then I go back to sleep and it's a nightmare. And I'm like, okay, time to switch things up, right? Time to not just deal with that all night. And so then I move to the living room or a different location and then I go to sleep there. And I'll tell you that almost always helps. And if it doesn't help right away, usually like that would be the last dream that was a nightmare, and then it won't be anymore. There won't be any more nightmares. That's honestly the best advice that I can give. I mean, you obviously know that it's a dream and it can't really hurt you, but it does affect you mentally for sure, right? I mean, the dream still happened and you might feel like, what's the word? Affected by it, emotionally affected by it. And so it just takes courage getting over that, I suppose. Keeping in mind or reminding yourself like, hey, I've got control over my feelings. That was a nightmare. I didn't actually do those things, or those things didn't actually happen to me, and I'm going to be okay. And we all have to remind ourselves of that. Sometimes on a daily basis that, hey, you know what? I'm going to be okay. But, you know, I can understand when you have a dream and it wakes you up because it's so intense. It's hard to go back to sleep. You don't want to go back into that, and sometimes you do end up falling asleep and going right back into it. And so, what I would suggest is a change of setting. I think I could talk to you about a spiritual level that might be affecting that, but that's probably for later. But more so, I think in our minds, you change your setting, your brain now no longer, it's out of place, but at the same time, now, you've changed your setting and it makes it easier to have a different dream, I suppose, a change of pace. You change your setting and then you have a change of pace. And that's true for a dream catcher. A dream catcher is something that's there, that is a physical object that your brain remembers exists when you sleep. And your brain remembers that exists when you sleep. And so it helps direct your brain's functions while you sleep. I don't know if you've ever experienced lucid dreams or dreams where you are literally awake and dreaming at the same time, able to stare at different objects in the room while sleeping. Or if you know how dreams work, but dreams are kind of like a fluid form of thought that interacts often with things that are going on outside, like that your brain is trying to explain. So if you are sleeping and someone drops a rock on the floor and you hear it, your dream will try to go, okay, how did that fit in the dream? And then it'll be like, okay, so that just happened. Well, I guess I would just insert this right here. And that rock falling sound was probably my mom shutting the door in the dream. Your brain makes these weird functions. And so you tell a story not in a normal timeline, but you perceive it in normal timeline, even though you're really inserting chunks here and here and here and there and forming a story out of it. And then when you wake up, the moment before you wake up, you remember all of the different things that happened as a sequence, even though it generally actually was never a sequence. It's kind of interesting. But having things that help your brain keep on track, and I think that's exactly what a dream catcher does. It helps your mind go, oh, but I got that dream catcher, and that's going to make me feel good. So only good things will happen to me, and it's a very subconscious motion that keeps you on track. And so sometimes changing your room, that's what I would suggest. I've done that, and that usually helps for me. Yeah, and I'm wondering what Joe might have to say about this then.
Yeah, well, nightmares is, it's really interesting. I used to have a recurring nightmare about falling up.
Isha has a nightmare. Pretty cool. Okay.
Well,
it's probably scary. I mean,
it is. Well, because I kept thinking I'm going to have to come back down, and I'm like way high up in the air.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Like I'd be getting shot up in the air by something, and then I'd just be way up in the air, and then I'm like, and then I would wake up before I would descend too far,
Yeah.
But and it's crazy when you have a nightmare that feels so real, and your adrenaline's going, just like Princess had said in the chat. It's like your adrenaline's going, your heart's pumping, and you're like, oh, and you're like sweating, and it's like, oh my gosh, it can really freak you out and make you. I can understand your apprehension of going to sleep. These days, I'm so stinking busy that I don't sleep very much at all, and so when I sleep, I'm pretty much dead, and like I don't remember my dreams very much because I'm so exhausted when I go to sleep, and then also during the day. So that's one thing you can do, is just exhaust yourself completely before you fall asleep. Like when you go to sleep, you're so tired, you're just like
so tired your brain can't even function to tell a story.
Right. Exactly. But like Ryan said, one thing about the dream catcher is it can, just knowing that it's there, can give you a sense of security in your subconscious mind, because you associate that item, with security and with having good dreams. And, it's the same type of effect, for people like when we're young, maybe we have a teddy bear or a stuffed animal that's like kind of like our sense of security, and that happens all throughout life. We have things that we place value on, that then set our mind at ease, or then remind us to do certain things, or all these different things. It's great to have something that can do that for you. And if a dream catcher does that, then buy a dream catcher. Buy one for your car, buy one for your room. I take a lot of naps in my car because I spend my days driving. And so, I'll just be exhausted. And so I'll pull off into a roadside, rest stop or whatever, and just like tip my seat back, take a 15-minute nap.
Sen is offended.
Oh, when you were young.
I know she's just kidding.
Sorry. Hey, we can be, I'm 40 years young.
There you go.
So, hey. But at any rate, one thing you can do also practically, since dreams come from our subconscious mind. And sidebar, lucid dreaming, for those of you who can lucid dream, I'm jealous.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I hope one day I have the time to train myself to do lucid dreaming, because that just sounds so much fun. If I could lucidly dream, I would like make myself fly all the time, because that'd be great. But at any rate, dreams come, they're in our subconscious mind. So one thing you can do is start to program your subconscious mind. Now, your subconscious mind acts on memories, feelings. You can reprogram it through generating memories with all the senses. A great book I'm reading right now called Psycho-Cybernetics talks about the fact that your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a real memory or a vividly imagined memory that wasn't real, just something you made up, but you imagined it vividly and got all the senses involved, and you were relaxed when you did it. Your subconscious mind will treat that as real, and it will assimilate that memory into your memory bank and treat it as though it actually happened to you. And so you can visualize things like that. What I would recommend doing is taking time. I remember I used to be plagued by nightmares a lot more until I went through this program where I had to do a certain amount of visualization. And so what I'd do is I'd get myself relaxed. I'd get in a really comfortable chair or lay down on my bed, and I would, you just lay there and breathe deep and pay attention to your breathing, and you try and empty your mind. So you just try and get all the thoughts to just let go. You just dismiss your thoughts. If a thought comes in your mind, you say, "Thank you, and I dismiss you," and just dismiss it, and just relax and dismiss your thoughts, and then just focus on your breathing patterns. Focus on deep breathing, and and then as you relax, then imagine your feet and your hands to be bricks of cement. Like they're super heavy. They're made of cement, and you can't even lift them because they're so heavy. And so your feet and your hands are made of cement, and then it just kind of creeps. Then your arms and your whole legs made of cement, and you just can't move. And you're there, and then.
And you're not trying to either. It's not a nightmare.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But so you can do this, and then when you get to the point where you're relaxed and you end up in the state where it almost feels like you're having an out-of-body experience. At least that's what happened for me. I felt like I was just a mind, and my body didn't really exist because it was so relaxed that it felt like I didn't even have it, you know? And at that moment, then you can start programming your subconscious mind. Sometimes you can go through a little extra exercise where if you're having trouble getting deeper, you can imagine going down a flight of stairs with each breath you take. Each step is a breath. So one step. Then you do it again. Deep breath, inhale, exhale, another step. And you go down 10 stairs. And then when you're at the bottom of the steps, then you're in a state where you can feed your subconscious mind images, and you can reprogram your subconscious. And the idea is to get all of your senses involved and think of good things, good positive things, things that are the opposite of what you're having nightmares about. So, if you're having nightmares about being trapped in an enclosed space, I don't know if you suffer from claustrophobia and your nightmare is you're stuck in a box or an elevator or something, and you can imagine being in an open field running free, just the exact opposite of whatever the thing is that frightens you in your nightmare. And you can start reprogramming your subconscious with more and more thoughts of the nature that you want to that are the opposite of your nightmares. And then what will happen is when you then fall asleep and you dream, your subconscious mind will replay that stuff more. It will be more likely to replay something that you've programmed into your mind that way. So it's very interesting that you asked this question right now because I'm currently going through the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And it really, if you want to understand the inner workings of your mind, like the subconscious mind, and how to actually harness it and use it to help you move forward, that's the book to get. And Psycho-Cybernetics, it sounds like a really boring title.
And it sounds like sci-fi to me. It sounds cool.
Yep. But it's very, very good at helping, to reprogram your mind and to get your mind working for you instead of working against you. Because we are not our minds. We are separate from our minds. Our essence of being is something separate than our body or our mind. We have been given a body and a mind as something to use, something to, it's like a tool. It's like a mechanism. And this book explains how this mechanism works and how you can, make adjustments to it. So I would definitely encourage Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And it's a hefty read. It's got some big words in there, but yeah.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Definitely, because it is your subconscious mind, and being able to program it outside of your sleep will help you when you do sleep. People who have nightmares are often people who have nightmares. What I mean by that is people who are afraid of having nightmares are the people that are most likely to get them, because that's on their mind when they're sleeping. I hope I don't get a nightmare again tonight, and then you will, because you're thinking
it's
about
the last
it.
thing on your mind.
Yeah, and then when you go to sleep, your brain is like, okay, how do I make this a sweet nightmare? All right, so first we start off with this. Oh no, I thought about that. And now that happens, and then your mind just runs wild with it. Which, on that note, one thing I would highly suggest is staying. I'm sure you already do this, but stay away from things that can alter your mind. Substances that alter your mind in the way that it works naturally. So things like caffeine, things like, I know you don't do this, but alcohol, things like, you know, that type of thing. I don't know, there's all sorts of different chemicals. You know more about that stuff than I do, I'm sure. But there's mind altering substances that are in every ordinary, in daily food and drinks, like caffeine and so on. So try to stay away from those things before you go to sleep, because they will definitely make your mind run wild and be less easy to control. you know?
Yeah, and if there's anything transdermal that you use, there are patches. That's like a medication that goes through your skin. So like a patch of any kind. It's funny that way back when I used to smoke, and when I was trying to one time to quit, I used a patch, to try to quit,
Mm.
a nicotine patch. And I can remember leaving that on one night and just the wicked, wicked dreams. It was crazy, just like really wild. And now my wife uses transdermal like vitamin supplement.
Mm.
So it's like vitamins and supplements in a patch. So, and she has to remember to take that off before she goes to sleep, because that will give her like wicked, wild, crazy dreams as well if she wears that all night. So, like anything transdermal, I would avoid while you're sleeping too.
Fair
So,
enough.
but yeah, so that's a really, really good question, Princess. I'm glad you asked that.
Yeah, quite
'Cause
interesting.
it can definitely, that's a tough challenge to be in. And I think Ryan hit the nail on the head. One of the most important things you can do is, you know, train yourself to not go to bed thinking, like, being worried about having a nightmare. You know, what you do when what you do right before you go to bed, the thoughts you have right before you go to bed are generally the thoughts that you will carry through the night, and then the first thoughts you have when you wake up as well.
Absolutely.
So, you know, try and, I read something positive. I usually read some kind of affirmation and pray right before
Mhm.
bed.
Oh, yeah.
I
Absolutely.
I visualize my goals. I visualize whatever I'm running for, the dream that I'm running after. I visualize that, and then there's an affirmation, and then prayer, and then
Actually,
that's what I do right before sleeping.
that's a good recommendation. What I would say is fall asleep in prayer. God's not going to be upset at you for not finishing it. Uh,
Ah, yeah, good point.
so, yeah, that's a pretty good one. Fall asleep talking about the things that you're thankful for and things like that. I mean, that's that's a good thought to lead off on night on, because yeah, it's totally true what Joe said. What you fall asleep thinking about is what your mind is going to take and then carry on throughout the night.
Mhm,
At least through the beginning of the night, at that moment, because then it has a thought to start the process of story writing off of. It's kind of interesting that our minds do that, but they do.
mhm. And what do I do if my kids have nightmares? Depends on the severity of the nightmare, really. I mean, if it's a nightmare where they just kind of woke up barely half awake, then if I'm available, I will sit with them, for a little while, and try and help them get back to sleep. If it like jerks them all the way awake and they're freaking out, you know, then that takes, sitting with them a little bit longer. But I generally try, you know, if I'm able to do this now, my wife generally will do this more than me. Um, but you know, and it's funny, our oldest son is a sleepwalker, which is interesting.
Oh,
That's a whole other
yeah,
topic.
that's fun.
But my wife is a sleepwalker too, and I've done that before too. Usually I don't sleepwalk unless I'm in this sleep experiment,
Yes, in the
Trying to
middle of your
reduce
sleep
the amount of
experiment.
sleep I'm getting.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just mostly just trying to calm them down. If they're freaking out, it's like just be there, because then there's somebody else there that's solid, that's there to comfort, and that's kind of one of the beautiful things about being a parent, you know, and you can be a rock for your children, you know,
Mhm.
at least when they're younger. We still have yet to enter the teenage years, and that'll be fun, I'm sure. But I remember a teenager, and I remember the handful that I was.
Yep.
So,
I was actually one of the good teenagers.
you were. I knew
Yeah,
you when you were a teenager.
that's right. Yeah, I didn't cause much problems.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, yeah, I'll do that.
I would learn how to live your life from Ryan. You learn
I'm
what to
not
do
the
from
greatest.
Ryan, and you learn. See, the
And
only
then you
reason
have a lot to
I
improve on
the only
from
reason
there.
I have anything to say is because I screwed all of it up, and I can tell you what not to do and what I did to change, basically.
If I were you, the first thing I would do is I'd shave this beard off because this just doesn't belong there.
But it looks so
But
good.
I'm me, unfortunately, and that means I'm a little bit too lazy to do that.
I imagine Princess Yellow's not going to struggle with the whether or not to shave the beard issue.
You know, what if she wants a beard? She just can't have one. Yeah, you should. No, I don't even want it. Okay, anyways. Uh, so be like Joe and don't grow as Ryan. What?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Be like Ryan. Yeah, pretty good.
Okay, so
Hey,
thank you for
Nihilus.
that question. Oh, hey, Nihilus. Long time no see. Welcome. Oh, it's a fight over whether I should keep it or shave it. That's uh we'll let the opinions be opinions, and everyone can have their own. Whether you like a beard or not, it's all good.
Man, everybody's telling you to shave it. I should grow mine back.
Oh, you can have mine.
That's
I
the
don't.
beautiful thing about beards. Like when you can grow it, you can totally change your look. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of
In a
cool.
couple of days,
Hmm.
or instantly if you shave it off. Like this is what I'd
Yes.
look like without a beard. Way more handsome.
Hey, Mr. Handsome, Mr. Handsome
Thanks,
Pants.
thanks, Mr. Pantsy Hands. So, um,
Well, at any rate,
so
Princess, thank you so much for posting, and hopefully we offered something that was helpful to you.
mhm. You can be a Chinese monk. There you go. Uh, so is Anonymous here to do this one with us? I'm curious. I don't know if they're here or not.
We
I'll
can
see.
also ask if Jack has showed up,
Yes,
or
and has Jack reached? Is
Jack,
Jack
or very drawn out. We love you, Princess.
cool?
Much love back to you.
Anonymous is here.
Okay.
It looks like Jack is not, unfortunately.
I haven't heard anything from Jack
Yeah,
or very drawn out.
yeah, haven't heard from them. Hopefully they'll return someday soon. They might only be able to make Fridays. You know, that's how
That's
some
true.
people
It's
have
true.
it. Yeah, but yep. Remember, guys, feel free to put your own situations down if you have any. For the people that are present today, no issue is too small. Everything is something we can talk about. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, or too big. We've already talked about things that are somewhat controversial, including like LGBTQ stuff and whatever. So don't be like, oh, they wouldn't talk about that. We'll talk about just about anything on this show and try to point people in what we feel is a good direction in the issues, just to give advice. So Just keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Sai. Yes, I remember Sai. Sai's awesome. I miss her as well. So here's from Anonymous. When I was younger, I remember most things I was told, like every bully's words, and every time I got hurt by them. My mom and dad never hit me, and I barely got in trouble, but sometimes I wish they did. I wish they did one of those things more when I did something wrong. So in turn, I took everything to heart every time they yelled at me. I don't steal. I don't talk about my feelings. I don't fight back. I don't say when I'm hurting. I'm afraid of my dad because he yelled at me more and sounded more angry, which is normal. I try to forget, but I can't. Every time I do something wrong, I cry. Like if I add too much sauce, I cry. If I fail at sports, I cry. If I get lower than an A in something, I cry. I can't look at him without thinking he is going to yell at me even now, and he never really yells at me. And so that's what was written by Anonymous. I had to rewrite a little bit of it so that it was a little bit more fluid, and that's totally cool. They asked me to do that, so hopefully I did that justice. Hopefully I got the questions across that you wanted. But yeah, just let me know if I got something wrong there. Anyways, cool. He said, "Yep, we're all good." So yeah.
Good. Well, Anonymous, thank you so much for asking. I'm just assuming you want me to jump in.
Yeah, go for it. Please.
If I step on your toes, Ryan, I apologize.
No, my pinky toe.
No, my toe, it hurts. Boy, I totally can relate. One of the things, it takes a lot of guts to put this out there, Anonymous. So thank you. And it's not an easy thing. One thing that I've learned about, because I am very, very sensitive to words. And it's because my love language is words of affirmation. There are 5 love languages. If you get the book, the 5 love languages, it goes through, all the different love languages. And mine, the one,
It's kind of like part of your personality, but not necessarily relating to like the 16 personalities or anything. It's a separate thing, but it's like part of who you are.
Yep. And so, but it's very interesting because I take words to heart more than I take anything else to heart. Like, if somebody punches me, it doesn't bother me as much as if somebody says a mean word to me, or says something that's very harsh to me. And likewise in the opposite direction, if somebody gives me a hug, I don't feel loved as much as if someone says something encouraging and uplifting and loving towards me. So, it kind of moves in that direction. So it sounds to me like it's possible that words have a greater impact on you than other things. So it's a good base to start from, to recognize that about yourself and understand, okay, so I am affected by words, more than any other thing that's out there. People say things without thinking all the time. And I'm not saying this is happening to you, Anonymous, but I just know in my life, what I had to learn was that, what? There were a lot of things that got said to me when I was growing up from lots of different people. And I'm a perfectionist, at heart anyway. So I can totally relate to what you're saying here. Every time I do something wrong, I feel really bad about it. Anytime I make a mistake, anytime one little thing, if, like you get too many grains of salt on something, I shook it one too many times. It's totally ruined and I'm a failure. and all these kinds of different things. These thoughts crop up. I would not allow myself to make a mistake based on some of the things that had happened. And it's a real wake-up call for me as a parent to be mindful of how I treat my kids, because I don't want them to be afraid to make mistakes. I don't want them to be, like, I don't want them to feel uncomfortable coming to me when they do make a mistake, because I don't want to like belittle them and make them feel like they're idiots because they screwed up. I mean, I mess things up all the time. And I've been able to grow personally to that point where now I don't worry so much if I make a mistake. It's still there, but it's just lessened to a certain degree. And that type of change really only happens over time. And it takes some effort, to reprogram yourself a little bit to help you understand that, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes all the time, and that's how innovations happen. That's how new things come about, as mistakes. That's how, when you're searching for something in the dark, or you're blindfolded, or you're looking for something, maybe I'm looking for my pen that's on my desk, and it's dark, and I'm feeling around. Every time I don't feel my pen, that's a mistake. But then eventually, as I feel around enough, oh, hey, there's my pen. Hey. And you find it. So I made like 25 mistakes in trying to find my pen until I finally got it. And it's also like learning to walk. How many times do you think we fall before we learn how to walk? Before we learn how to stand first, and then we learn how to walk. It takes so many failures to get to the point where we actually succeed at something. And I'm sorry for all the harsh words that have been said to you. I'm so sorry. I think probably, more than likely, I mean, if your dad has been angry, there may have been something that your dad's been dealing with. There may be some issues that are unresolved there that are causing anger. So it's not just you. Most of the time, when somebody's mad at us, like really mad, and they're mad all the time, it's not us that's the problem. Like when I went around for a long time in my life, I was angry at everybody. Anybody would do anything and I would be angry at them. I would yell and I would be angry and I would be passive aggressive. I wouldn't talk to them for a while and I would just torment them with dirty looks.
That's mean, man.
I know. It was horrible. And the problem wasn't them. Oh, big deal. They made a mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. Big deal. No, the problem was me. The problem was I had issues that were unresolved. And so I was projecting anger upon everybody because of the issues that I had with me that I had to fix. So sometimes that's the case where maybe you're dealing with people that have self-esteem issues, which pretty much everybody has some kind of self-esteem issue, or other unresolved issues in their life that cause them to just treat people this way automatically. And I'm sorry that you have to have contact with someone that's going through that. But you should understand, it's not you. When you make a mistake, you make a mistake. Big deal. It's not, there is very little that we do that we make mistakes on. that matters even 10 minutes from the time we make the mistake, let alone a week from when we make the mistake, let alone a year from when we make the mistake. I remember my boss one time, he was trying to figure out, what was going on. I had this job, and I had the owner of the company needed me to move to a different location. There were multiple locations of this store, and they needed me to move, and it was going to be a totally different city. And I had a lease on a house that I was renting in this one city, and I had like 8 months left on this lease. And they needed me to move to a different city. And he was like, well, I guess I'm buying out your lease because I need you to move to this other city. And we talked to my landlord, and he didn't want to, we had a lease, we had an agreement, by his right, obviously he's entitled to the money for the lease. Otherwise he would have rented it to somebody else, And so he didn't have to buy out the whole lease. He just paid it until it was able to be re-rented. But he did that. And I was like, wow, man, what made you do that? He said, I just look at it this way. I needed you to move, and you were willing to move. And I appreciate that. And 5 years from now, that money isn't going to matter. The money I used to buy your lease out is not going to matter. So he would take it the 5-year rule. He's like, is it going to matter 5 years from now? No, what's going to matter more 5 years from now is that you move to this other location, and whatever it takes to get there. And so you can treat it like that with any mistake. You can look at it and you can be like, is this going to matter a year from now? Is this going to matter 2 weeks from now? And in sports, I see that if you fail at sports, it's upsetting. I've been through that too. But one thing that, people who are very, very great athletes, like Michael Jordan will say, I miss more shots than I make, And I said, the real key is, can you just brush off that mistake? Can you brush off that failure and get set for the next one? Be like, I'm going to make the next one. I'm going to make the next one. I'm going to make the next one, and continue to look forward. And so I would encourage you to start to think in terms of that, just looking forward rather than looking at the present or the past and these mistakes. Because if we keep a scorecard of our mistakes, man, that's going to be one of the most depressing things that, ever. And it will haunt you, and it will create negative feelings in your life. And then maybe you'll turn into somebody like me, who was just angry at everybody because I had all these mistakes that were haunting me all the time. It could turn into that. So I don't know if any of that helped, because I also know that sometimes when we're in the middle of something, even if somebody says something encouraging, we kind of have this knee jerk, they just don't understand, response, And I get that. I understand that, that might be the case. So I hope that can help redirect, what's going on for you. And Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you. So.
Thanks, Joe. That was really good. I mean, I'm so glad that you went first, because there was a lot of really great things. And I feel like in a lot of ways you relate to Anonymous in this more than I do in some places, for sure. And I think that's really great, because you're able to give a lot of guidance there. So I would just listen to what Joe had to say again if you need more, because I'll tell you what, there are many times when I listen to something and I thought I got everything the person was saying, but then I listened to it again and I'm like, wait, how come I didn't hear that before? Like years later, I'll listen to it like for the 5th time and I'll still hear something I didn't even pick out before. And our minds do that to us. So it's kind of interesting, because I think what happens is, our brains focus on a certain sentence, and then our minds get carried off with that, and then we miss the next line or whatever it is. But anyways, um, yeah, what Joe had to say was great. I'll tell you, you said that even though you did add that your dad doesn't even really yell at you that often. I can understand having that scar. I'm the same as Joe as far as words of affirmation being my love language, meaning, words are what affect me the most, whether that is to feel loved or to feel hated, um, um, and bullied and etc. Words are important to me, which is why I was always, when people say actions over words, that sort of thing, I've always wanted to like punch them in the face and be like, no, you're wrong. Sorry, but no, words matter. Words are just as important as the action a lot of times, um, especially to me, not to everybody. Um, but anyways, um, but yeah, I can understand feeling scarred, about, being worried every time you look at somebody about what they're going to say or how they're going to treat you. Um, Even though you are sure that like, oh, they have, they love me and they're probably not going to yell at me because they never yell at me. But yet every time you see them, you're still worried. I understand that. I've been there before, and some of those things, they're just there because of past experiences you've had, and they were scarring, or they were annoying, or they happened a lot in the past and they don't happen anymore, but it's just still something that's in the back of your head every time you think about that person. And the really the only way to get rid of that is to have conversations with that person and open up about it. At least through my experiences, if you have because when in that situation you have a relationship, and what's holding you back from a better form of that relationship is you, because your thoughts are making you worried about the person, even though you're not supposed to be worried, even though you have no reason to be. Something in the back of your head makes you afraid or whatever. And the only way to open that relationship back up and continue moving it forward is to have an honest talk about that subject with the person, because then you're opening up your vulnerableness to them, and that allows them to affect it. Because if you don't open up to them, then they can't change anything, right? If you don't tell them, then they don't have the ability to have a sincere conversation with you that says, oh, I'm sorry for doing that in the past, or whatever they need to say to help you move forward. So you might have to be open with that, to your father in order for that to move forward, if you find the courage, to get into that position, because I totally understand that. Now, of course, there are things you can do for yourself to get over it, without ever having to confront them, but that road is a lot longer and doesn't really include them. Um, and it's a lot harder, and it's not really like I have no way to say this is the path, because it's really just up to your brain, and it's hard to guide in that sort of thing. So when you're worried about someone's reaction or whatever, just open up to them about it. And I think that will do you the best. I hope that makes sense. And so, and the other thing was, um, being worried about, being upset over every failure. I mean, I get it. But I'll tell you, I used to be like that a lot. Very, very worried about, so worried about what people thought of me. But, also always afraid of messing up to the point of never trying, like, oh, I won't even, like, you say you'll cry when you put the sauce in and you mess the sauce up or something. I'll I'll cry when I'll be so afraid of messing that up I won't even try, and I'll make someone else do it. Right? That's kind of how I was. But it wasn't until the end of high school when I started to decide to get out of my shell and realize I need to make mistakes. I need to purposefully embarrass myself. I need to purposefully mess up in front of people at my own expense, because it actually caused other people to laugh and have a good time, and it helped me grow. When I started to take life more seriously and less seriously at the same time, I stopped taking myself so seriously and thinking that I had to do everything perfectly. But I also took life more seriously in the aspect of, what can I do to make myself a better person? What can I do to make me the best version of myself? What can I do that's uncomfortable, that I'll have to force myself through, and might be really awkward, and I might, I might make a lot of failures. Other people might laugh at me, but what do I have to do regardless of all those things so that I can move forward? And then doing those things, I'll tell you, that just, when I did that, it changed my entire perspective on life. And I no longer really got too scared of taking action anymore, because I realized it was okay if I mess up. That's just part of the process. It's okay if I make food and the food doesn't turn out very well. I can eat it anyways, and then I'll know what not to do next time. And eventually, sometime I might end up with an awesome recipe. And I've done that before, recently I tried a couple of different things with eggs. I put in a little bit of rice vinegar in my eggs to see what it would do to the eggs when I cooked them. And then I put in alcohol with it's a weird alcohol to put in, but vodka, but it's what I had. So I put vodka in my eggs when I cooked them just to see what the eggs would do. But I knew I was going to eat it regardless, and that's okay. It didn't taste amazing, but it was good enough for food substance. But ultimately, it was like an experiment. So if you can think of your life more as an experiment and a trial and error of, how do I make this human being grow, and that human being being yourself? What experiments can I run my body through? What experience can I run my mind through and get over them? Because a lot of things is just running the ropes. A lot of it's just taking action and then reaping the benefits afterwards. So like when I cooked the eggs with vinegar, I realized it did something really interesting. It made the eggs almost creamy, which was cool. It makes me think, okay, so I didn't really care for the rice wine, but let's try a different wine, or different acidic substance. So I tried vodka. It didn't make the eggs creamy. So it's something specifically in the vinegar. It's all an experiment. I wouldn't even call them necessarily failures. They are failures because they didn't turn out tasty, but they're an experiment. And sometimes, that happens in life too. Sometimes you go snowboarding, right? Or something. And then you're like, okay, you get up on the snowboard and you instantly fall over, and you're like, dang, I am terrible at the snowboard. Well, yes, of course. No matter how many times you're on a snowboard, you fall. Everybody on a snowboard falls. That's part of snowboarding, honestly. And at some point you're so used to falling that you don't even remember that you've fallen. Like, I know that I can talk to people who were really into snowboarding, and the way that they would snowboard and they would fall and get up, like in under a second. They would fall and get back up, and then they wouldn't even remember that they ever fell. It would be out of their mind, because it's just a part of the process of snowboarding, is the failure of falling about once every other second, but you don't realize it anymore that it's even happening, because you're like, this is just how this moves. This thing causes you to fall over when you're standing still or whatever. And that's kind of how life is. So ultimately, yeah, just listen to Joe's part again. But yeah, it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are good. And maybe just talk to the situation that you're having. When you're worried about talking to your dad, you're worried that he's going to yell at you. Be open about that with him and see where that goes. I feel like that's one of the best ways you can improve a relationship is to tell them where you're vulnerable, because then they are there to support you in that, and try to work out. One thing I would recommend, though, when you talk about that to your father, it's very important to let them know that you don't think it's their fault, and that it's your own mental battle. It's important to come at it from the angle of like, hey, I'm having this struggle and it's my fault. You've done nothing wrong, but for some reason, it scares me to talk to you because I always feel like you're going to yell at me, even though you never yell at me. This is just some weird thing that's in my head and I don't know why it's there. And I'm wondering, how do I get past this? What do you think? If you open up to them, letting them know that it's a mental battle you have in your head and it's not their fault, you might be surprised at where it goes. But yeah, that's my main recommendation for that. So, but yeah, and I've known you for a while. Now Joe doesn't really know you, but I've known you, and honestly, I've noticed you improve in a lot of things, and so just keep on doing what you're doing, and keep on moving forward. Keep on putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, and I'm sure things will continue to get better, and I think you've already seen a lot of improvement in yourself. And so I just keep going down that road and you'll see even more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one thing I forgot to say was, because it seems like there are a lot of things in this challenge of yours that are coming from other people, your mom, your dad, the other people in your life. And I'll tell you, the peace that comes through forgiving other people is absolutely incredible. The healing, because this insecurity you feel about making mistakes, this, this problem of being afraid to fail and being afraid to make mistakes, all these things, there's an underlying insecurity that's caused by, all of these things that have happened to you. And when you get to the point where you, in your heart, are able to truly forgive others for the wrongs that they've, committed towards us, the peace and the healing that comes from that smooths out that insecurity. And, it won't matter so much to make a mistake. It won't even matter so much that they get upset if they do. Because it's just like, well, hey, you start to see things, rather than being afraid or being fearful that this person's going to yell at you, you almost more start to pity the other person because they're in a bad spot, or else they wouldn't be acting that way. And it's almost like, man, I wish there was something I could do to help them through this
so true.
negative experience they're having. But that, that starts with learning to forgive. And that's not always an easy road. And sometimes it takes time. It's not like an instantaneous thing all the time. Sometimes it can be a simple decision, and then all of a sudden everything's smoothed out. But a lot of times it takes some digging around and really getting at the root in your heart. What am I forgiving this person for? What are these things that I need to forgive this person for? And that can really, really help. So I would encourage you to try and find ways to do that as you move through this journey. And it sounds like you've already taken some great strides, from what Ryan was saying. So that's awesome, Anonymous. And I'm really happy to hear that. But yeah, just keep on going and keep coming back, keep listening. I like listening to Ryan because, if I listen to myself, I don't learn very much.
Honestly, though, sometimes you learn the most when you listen to yourself. Sometimes.
I'm like, I said that?
Yeah. Whoa, that's weird. I
I
like
better
it.
start living up to that if I said
Yeah. No, actually, I really like what you said about forgiveness because that's extremely important. Oh my gosh, is it important? Um, being able to forgive my bullies, even like literally in the second when they were doing something mean to me,
Mhm.
changed everything. Because as soon as I was able to just forgive and let people off the hook, and not be mad at people for being jerks, um, it's just like you said, you start to pity them. And pity is not a bad thing. It is not a mean thing. I think a lot of people think pity is to look down on. It is
Mm.
not. I
Mhm.
think, you see in a movie, like you see in the movies, don't pity me, whatever. Pity is a beautiful thing. The problem is people who are really prideful say, don't pity me because they feel like they're being looked down on. But in truth, pity is extremely beautiful because pity isn't to look down on, it's to look lovingly upon. It's to look at someone and say, I wish it was better for them. So pity is not a bad thing. So it's not looking down on someone. It's just looking at somebody the right angle, honestly, at the angle of, wow, I hope things get better for them.
Mhm.
So when
Yeah.
you feel bad for somebody, that's that's empathy, and that's pity.
Mhm.
Yep, pity is a form of support. So, anyways, but yeah, forgiveness is huge, huge. But yeah, and if you want to remember, if you want help with forgiveness, Joe has given some great advice on that in previous streams. I'm sure you've um, heard him talk about different things there, but yeah.
Yeah. It helped a lot of my neurotic feelings
Hmm.
when I was led in the direction of forgiving others, and I had to dig back a long time, to some moments that were defining moments that I didn't realize were defining moments that hurt me to the point where I made a shift in my thinking, you know. And those moments, when I walked through the forgiveness process with those people, and I haven't talked to those people. So one of those people in that situation I haven't talked to since I was in seventh grade when the incident happened.
And yet that defines you a
Yep.
lot of how you think.
It was amazing. And then but that moment stuck with me. And when I was able to go back in my mind and in my heart and forgive and let go, then it was amazing that so many other areas of my life got fixed because it was like all that was smoothed out. And there were so many seemingly unrelated areas, but they were all neuroses based on this wrong thought process that I had based on this incident where I was holding a grudge. It was really, it was crazy. And if I could just take that change of feeling that I had in my heart when I was able to walk through that process and just give it to you and put it in your heart so you would see what it feels like, I would. And then it would, you would run to chase down those moments that you need to forgive someone for. It's incredible the peace that comes from
Mm-hmm.
that. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of us are searching in life for peace. It's one of those rare, for so many, it is so rare. And it's like, peace, what is that? Like, how do you even get it? Peace, one of the most um, desired resources in our lifetime is peace. It's like one of those things where people like can't get enough and they barely get any at all. And I'll tell you, you can't be peaceful if you're holding grudges because a grudge requires that there's not peace.
mhm.
In order to have peace, forgiveness is required. Um, it's, you know, but it's one of the most refreshing things and one of the most important things when it comes to making a decision. If you make a decision when you're already at peace, oh, it's so easy, and it makes it makes the decision making process easier and more logical, and also you're okay with the decision that you made, but if you're not at peace, you know um, beginning the decision process of anything, of any action, becomes all convoluted and really hard to figure out, and etc. So being at peace is really important,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so rare in our world today.
Mm.
But if you find time to forgive, that will definitely take you on that journey towards peace, because um, yeah, a lot of the war that's raging on in our mind comes from a lack of forgiveness, whether it be for ourselves or for others.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yep.
so anyways,
Yeah. Thank you, Anonymous, for the post. And
yeah, thank you very much.
hopefully some of what we said helped.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's kind of interesting, you never know, whether when you say something, whether it's the words that'll get across to them or change their outlook or their perspective or how they act over the next week, or if it'll all just not do anything at all. Sometimes sometimes we aren't the ones that help in the end, but
Right.
we certainly hope that we help a little bit um, along the way.
Yeah. It's funny. I was actually listening to an interview with Dr. Gregory Popchak. He's
Uh-huh.
a
Oh yeah, pop check.
he's a therapist, and he was talking about the fact that this it was a radio call-in show, and this mom was trying to figure out how she could help her teenage daughter that was struggling with depression and anxiety and all this kind of stuff, and how can I, I'm trying to tell her all these the good things. I'm trying to encourage her and tell her the good things about herself and remind her of accomplishments that she's had, remind her of the good that's in her heart and all these different things, and all that's true. It was very, very interesting, what Dr. Greg had said. He said, a lot of times when we are in that anxious, like unconfident state like that, um, we reject, any encouragement somebody brings us. Anytime somebody tells us something good about ourselves, all these kinds of different things, we reject it automatically because we're so deeply in that state, that deep state of mind of that, and so we automatically just reject it all. Say, oh, that they don't understand. They don't understand what I'm going through. So, all that. So he said one thing you can do, and it might take some time to actually work through this, is, just say, hey, come sit with me for a second, and then just, maybe hug or sit where you're touching one another, physical contact where your bodies start to kind of assimilate to each other, you know,
Because that's
and
not something you can mentally deny.
right, exactly,
And it's a
exactly.
form of affection that is, yeah. Oh, wow. That's
Mhm.
brilliant. That's very
Yep.
true.
And so
It's,
just do that for a little while, and then that defensive layer starts to come down. So sometimes, it was an eye opener to me. Here we are on Don't Worry Wednesday, and we're giving advice, or we're talking, or we're encouraging people, and it's like, and I sat there, I thought, how much of what we say falls on deaf ears because we don't have the opportunity to hug someone.
right.
We don't have the ability to do that, digitally, and you know, as much as we can, offer digital hugs, which we do all the time. People do that all the time on this stream. It's great.
Yeah. And I always encourage it.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. I mean, it's not necessarily the same, but, hopefully we're able to get through. Hopefully, sometimes our natural defenses to reject the encouragement, are pretty strong. but hopefully we can offer enough love and encouragement that some of it gets through and helps you feel a little bit better. So, yeah.
Yeah, when I was younger, it wasn't that I would reject what people would say. And I was listening to what people would say and I'd hear it. And I never felt like they just don't understand.
Uh-huh.
I had a different and a very interesting dilemma. And it's not like I was not the kind of person that would not accept help. I liked when people helped me and I would always accept help people offered. But I had this weird thing in the back of my mind that would always say, yeah, but I'm not going to let what they said change me. I'm going to change myself when I change. It's very strange, but it's this whole like someone would say something that was like really uplifting or really inspirational, right? If it was like super inspirational, but then like in the back of my head, I was like, wow, that was super inspirational. But I don't want to credit them when I like, if I do something like, so I'm just going to disregard what they said and it's going to be, and like, it'll be, I'm going to uplift myself and inspire myself. And then I'll go do something. It was really strange. So I held myself back a lot because I didn't want to, as weird as that is, I don't know if anyone else has ever been through that. I'm sure because I'm a human and other people are human, but it's just a really weird thing. And that would also carry into different forms of my depression. Like, I know people care about me and I know that the advice that they're giving makes sense. But at the same time, I'm going to choose not to do what they're saying just because they're saying it. And it wasn't me who came up with the idea. Literally, that was my mindset. And it's very prideful. Even though, it's just weird. But I remember being there. And so if you are like that, try to break down that wall. I know it's not easy, but I mean, I've been there too, where it's just like, yeah, like what they're saying makes sense, but I don't want the help to be coming from them. I don't want to listen in the end just because, yeah, I know it's true. I know they're right, but I don't care. And I don't want to listen to it. And if you're like that, good luck. No, I'm just kidding. Just try to break down that wall because you hear yourself saying those things in the back of your head. You know when you're doing it. Just as I knew when I was doing it. Like I was just.
I tell him he's awesome all the time.
Oh, I accept that I'm awesome, Joe.
It never gets through. He's always like, "No, you're awesome." I'm like, "No, you're awesome. No, you're awesome. No, you're awesome."
We're both awesome. Okay, just right now. But later, it's just you. No.
Oh, okay.
No, but anyways, yeah, it's kind of an interesting battle to deal with the pride side of depression. So if you're not in the state where you're like they don't understand and you've gotten to the point where you know that the people are correct and they know what they're talking about, but you still don't listen just because you have pride in the way, basically, because you're just like, yeah, they're right, but I don't care. Like I'm still gonna go. Good luck at trying to change that. And please do. You can. And it really helps a lot. It's okay to be changed by other people. Other people are extremely important and valuable. So you can do it. I think a lot of it is just on how you perceive other people and the value that you give them. So I used to hate people. So when I was younger, I didn't like people very much. I hear people say that. And I'm like, I don't like people. I'm not a people person. I don't like people. And like at the same time, I'm like, you don't like people, but you're like a people person. I can tell. Like you hate people. I understand that you hate people and you hate dealing with people, but at the same time, I know your personality and people are like the most important thing. So, but yeah, and it's interesting to be able to hear other people say that and be like, I went through that, and so it's just kind of interesting. It's fun part of going through life and looking back at different things.
Yeah. Yeah. We had I was watching this chat unfold as we were talking. Actually, as you were talking, I don't really watch the chat while I'm talking because then it just throws me off.
Yeah, but Drawn Out is here.
What's that?
They said Drawn Out is here.
Drawn Out is here?
I don't know, but they're saying it.
We are still waddling. Yep, there's Very Drawn Out right there. It says everyone's still waddling. We are still waddling. Yep.
Drawn Out is here. That's awesome.
Drawn Out is here. Yeah.
Cool. I suppose we have time to do that one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to save Maria Senpai's for some time.
Oh, what was Maria Senpai?
There was a great. I'm gonna post this actually in the questions from the live stream section of the website so we don't lose it.
Perfect. Thanks for asking or talking about one of your concerns there, Maria Senpai.
Yeah.
Or is it Maria Senpai? See, I know it's Maria, but if I had a kid, I might even name her Maria. I think Maria is a cool name, but the problem is, how would you spell that? You'd spell it exactly like Maria, and everyone would be like calling her Maria, even though it was Maria. You know, it's one of those life problems. Hold up.
Yeah.
I said my name.
Huh?
She's saying, hold up. They say my name.
We did.
Hi. Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
We're going to write down your question or concern or whatever it is in the on the forum so that next time we do a stream and you are present, we will get to it.
Although there were a lot of people in the chat that helped her out a lot. And it just, oh my gosh, like to watch that unfold was such a beautiful thing. Everybody just rallying around Maria and, so let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to paraphrase this. I'm just going to have to say work deprived. Project. Okay. There it is. All right. So let's see. Very drawn out.
Don't know how to deal with myself.
Yes.
Don't know how to deal with myself.
I don't always know how to deal with myself either. Very drawn out. So I appreciate you posting.
Yeah.
And I will read this topic.
Perfect.
So this was posted, last week?
22 hours ago.
22 hours ago.
That's what it said.
Oh, wow. Very Drawn Out went to the website and posted it. Thank you, Very Drawn Out. And let's see. Very Drawn Out says, most of the time I feel okay. I usually spend my time playing games, drawing, watching videos online, things like that. I typically keep to myself if possible, not really socializing with others. When I do try to socialize, most of the time I get nervous and feel like I messed up my chances of making a connection. And whenever that happens, I get into this terrible state of mind where I feel like I don't want to do anything and that I shouldn't try to make connections with others because it will always turn out bad.
Gotcha.
That feeling usually lasts for a while and then the cycle repeats. Are there ways to break that cycle?
Awesome question.
Yes.
That's super relatable.
My goodness.
Would you like to start or do you want me to go for it?
Hey, I read the question. You get to start.
Awesome. I will do that then. So, so yeah, that's again, super relatable. I totally understand that. And I like that you are understanding that it's a cycle that keeps on happening. It tells me that you're being very analytical about it and that you're on the right track already. I think it's important to notice that your nervousness is caused by worrying about it ending or being a terrible situation or whatever, it not working out like you want it to, and then that whole thing just cycles and whatever. So, anyways, yeah, I've got some ideas about what you can do to get out of this. One thing is just own it. Just own it. Go in there like you think you know what you're doing. That's key, because no one knows what they're doing. I'll tell you what, we're all humans. We all have different personalities. We all have different interests. We all have different smells. All right. Yeah, apparently.
And fingerprints.
And fingerprints. Well, apparently not fingerprints.
And hair follicles.
And hair. We all have different matter that makes up our skin and things. We have different DNA. We have different timelines. Anyways, so yeah, there's no one way, no, absolute, like, key, like, here's what you need to do to make friends with every single person in the world. You can't do it. But being a little bit more confident in yourself and feeling like you can make it work is often what makes it work. Because and now, how do you get there? Through trying, through pumping yourself up maybe a little bit before you interact with them. Pump yourself up and don't bring yourself down. So when you go to interact with somebody, you're going to be nervous, and that's going to be okay, right? Mm-hmm. That's pretty normal if you're not used to doing that. But before you talk to them, say things to yourself that aren't like, oh man, what if I mess up? What if it's super awkward? Or I'm going to be so nervous and my hands are going to sweat and they'll notice. Or, don't talk about that to yourself. When you talk to yourself about, all right, I just got to get in there and I'm going to do it. And then I'm going to own it. Basically, I'm just going to walk in there. I'm going to make them feel good, and I'm going to make a friend. Mm-hmm. Or say like, oh, but I really should do this, and I want to get to know the person. The person looks like a cool person. They seem like a cool guy, or a girl or whatever. I'm interested in them, and it's not going to hurt me if I go and make a friend, or if I don't end up making a friend, because right now I don't have a friend in them. So either I end up the same or I move forward. So I've got nothing to lose here. Talk to yourself and try to lift yourself up. Don't bring yourself down before the discussion that you end up having with them. I think that helps, ramping yourself up. Another thing is it's the key thing that I tell everybody when it comes to dealing with people. And basically goes like this. When you're dealing with people, what matters most is not what you look like to them, but what they look like to themselves when you're around them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Write that down. I will repeat it, and you can re-listen to it. But what matters most is not what you look like to them, but what they look like to themselves when you are around them. Mm-hmm. Think about all of your best friends. Think about any friend you've ever had. Think about anybody that you like, that you've interacted with on a personal level. Those are the people that generally made you feel good when you were around them. Those are the people that you feel good about yourself when you're around them. Mm-hmm. If you are that for somebody else, making a friend is so easy. Even if you don't share anything in common. They like NASCAR and you think NASCAR is boring. They like football and you think football is annoying. And that's the only two things they know how to talk about. And so you aren't very close with them, but you're still their friend because you took the time to tell them, wow, your dedication to football is impressive. And that'll lift them up because they like football. and they are impressed with their own dedication to football. And so you just point that out and they're like, thanks, man. That's awesome. You like football too, huh? And it's like, no, I don't. Oh, wow. Okay. That's weird. But they'll think you're weird, but that's okay, right? The most important thing is just to make them feel good about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Point things out about them that you like about them. And I'll tell you, that'll make your conversations work a lot more smoothly. I had to learn, I learned how to converse with people two different ways. The first way was talking to people online. That really trained me how to talk to people in real life. So when I talked to people online, I paid attention to how other people were doing it. I watched other people talk to each other. And then I started to be able to kind of do the same thing. I took on, like, if you ever watch me type, I use tons of emotes, and that's like emoticons, like little letters I use for faces and stuff like that. I use tons of those because when I learned how to communicate online, I watched people who did that. And then I took it to the next extreme. But that was a molding point. It molded me in how I began being able to talk to people in real life. When it came to real life, I was extremely scared because most people in my school, I thought hated me. I thought no one liked me. And so I was entering the situation where I had this, social stigma. I thought everyone didn't like me. So I went up to them. I purposefully sat down next to people who were basically strangers or maybe even enemies, and would force myself to strike up a conversation with them. And whether the conversation lasted a minute, 3 seconds, or 25 minutes, it was a success because it was a step forward. And I went away from the experience going, I did it. I talked to somebody. Into there. And basically my conversations I'll tell you, it's so easy to start a conversation when you just look at somebody and say, I like their shoes. And then you walk up to and say, hey, I like your shoes. Did you buy those, or where'd you get them from? Or I like your pants, and being really genuine about it. I think your pants are cool. I always like the dark shades that, dark shades with the light, and they'll be like, yeah, cool. Or they'll be like, oh, thanks, man. Yeah, me too. I went out and I picked these pants out on purpose because I really like that too.
Or they're like, my pants? These are not my pants.
That's right. That's kind of like an inside joke, but yeah. And then they rip their pants off, and underneath are another pair of pants.
These are my pants.
It's like, why did you what?
Oh man. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Or compliment their shirt, compliment their hair, compliment their skin, and whatever. I remember my mom complimenting people on the way their skin looked so smooth or whatever it was. And I was like, that's a weird one, but it's a compliment nonetheless, and people like it.
It is. In fact, you mentioned your mom. She complimented me.
Eyebrows.
Yes, she complimented me on my eyebrows. Were you there?
Yeah. That's my mom's thing. She pays attention to people's eyebrows. She's like, wow, your eyebrows are really cool.
Yeah, it was strange because I'd never heard that before, but I was very complimented by that because it was so specific.
Yeah.
That's a key, is being specific.
Yeah. So that's a great way to open a conversation and get yourself moving. Ultimately, the only way to get over this, this cycle, this dilemma, is to prove that you can do it to yourself. And don't beat yourself up when you think something goes wrong. Things are going to be awkward. Embrace the awkward. The awkward is not a bad thing. A lot of times we label things as bad because we don't necessarily like how they feel, or we're not sure how we should feel. But that isn't what makes something bad. That's just our disposition. We need to be able to look at awkward and say, awkward is an opportunity. Awkward, because okay, what happens when things are awkward? They get quiet. Well, perfect. That's all the more opportunity to make noise, right? You have to thrive in the awkward. You have to enjoy the awkward moments. If you can train yourself to enjoy the awkward, like purposefully try to drive a conversation so that it becomes awkward, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Because if you can do that and you'd be like, yes, I made it so awkward. It's awesome. Voice in yourself in that, then nothing will break you down in a conversation ever again. So as you're doing this, as you're moving forward in your ability to converse with people and move forward in breaking this cycle, one step I would suggest is get to a point where you are in a conversation where you decide, I'm going to purposefully try to make this really awkward, and then do it on purpose and make it awkward, because then you have nothing to lose. And then you learn to embrace the awkward and you're like, I did it. This is awesome. It's so awkward right now. This is hilarious. I love it. And then no matter what comes to you from that moment on, when something gets awkward, you understand it's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's just part of the way conversations move sometimes. And it's okay. It's so, and you're going to be nervous at first. That's part of it. But if you force yourself to do it and you don't give up, and you tell yourself compliments, and you tell other people compliments, because we're all humans. We all like compliments. We all like when other people see the good in us. And honestly, that's why you want to talk to people in the first place, right? To create something good. Mm-hmm. That's what a relationship is for, to make something good out of what was originally nothing. There was no relationship there, but then you met and you made something that is good. And so even if there is an awkward moment in the relationship, even if it starts off on an awkward moment, it's still seeking the end of a good. And making mistakes along the way is not bad. It's not evil, right? You know that. It's not evil to make a mistake. It's not evil to be nervous in front of them when you're trying to, talk with them. What's evil is to destroy a relationship on purpose, right? And that's not what you're doing. So just keep that in mind. And I hope that really helps. I'll tell you, I used to suffer with this a lot, like I said, and I've come a very long way. So I'm saying I know that you can do it too. And I've seen other people do it too. It's totally, you can totally break this cycle. And I believe in you. So, especially if you're already talking about, you're asking, how do you break the cycle? Like you're already moving in the right direction. So I'm going to give it up to Joe and see what Joe has to say about this.
Well, first thing I would say is go back and re-listen to that part that Ryan said. And this will be posted also within probably a week or two. We'll have this segment posted under your question. You can come back to that specific thing and listen to it again and again. But what Ryan said there is so important. There's really only two things that I can add to what he said, because he handled it so beautifully. And has two things. One is when you're, like what Ryan was talking about, it's not important how you feel when you're talking to someone else or how they think about you. What's important is how they feel about themselves while you're there. I can't state that enough. I'm glad Ryan repeated it twice. I'm going to repeat it again because that's such a huge principle. It's not important how others see you. It's more important how they feel about themselves while they are in your presence. So remember that, like grind that into your brain somehow. And if you can get good, here's the first thing. If you can get good at asking questions, You know,
Mm-hmm.
look
Prove
outside of
that.
yourself and ask questions. You know, like that takes, for one, that takes all the pressure off of you because you're asking questions about them. You don't have to come up with something clever to say once you
Right.
get good at asking questions because you're just going to ask. You know, because I heard a guy say one time, become a prodigious noticer. Like notice things about people, notice things about, you know, the situation around you, notice things that are going on, all these kinds of different things. You know, one, because it gets the focus off of yourself. And the biggest problem that you're facing in this situation, very drawn out, is that your focus is on yourself. And it's natural. It's natural for us to be focused on ourselves. It's natural for us to want to do things right and to, you know, be monitoring our own behavior. It's totally natural for that to happen. But when you can notice things outside yourself, notice things about other people, like Ryan said, people's shoes, people's pants, people's hair, people's eyes, people's eyebrows, you know,
People's interests,
people's
people's
absolutely interest.
talents.
I dealt with this. Now I'm old, so I'm very unrelatable to all of you because I'm old and I have kids and I'm a parent. And so, like the other day, we were at a birthday party for my oldest. Well, it was one of my oldest son's friends. We all went to this birthday party. It was a blast. We played laser tag in the woods.
Nice.
It was great. Like, man, it was so much fun. But you know, I had that social awkwardness around all the other parents. You know, so there's a mob of parents and there's a mob of kids, 6 to 11-year-olds, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm there with all these parents and I am that socially awkward guy still to this day. And I'm like trying to think of something to say. I'm trying to think of something to say. And then I remembered, I'm like, oh, ask a question. Because, you know, we're talking about stuff and it's so funny because most people are the same way you are. They
Yeah.
just don't look like it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you say
You
something
probably
and
don't look
people
like
don't
it
pay
to
attention,
them.
or you say something that's interesting, you think is interesting, they're not interested in it, you know? And I was dealing with this exact situation. I'm like all awkward. And then I was like, I remembered, oh yeah, this guy, he does insurance. He's an insurance guy. And so I just asked, hey, how's the world of insurance? And that got him talking for like, you know, 5 minutes about insurance stuff. Another guy, he's actually on the school board of the school that our kids go to. And I was like, hey, aren't you on the school board? He said, yeah. I'm like, so what's that like? And he said, oh, well, it's like this and that. And, you know, actually, the principal makes it really easy for us because she's blah, 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 and this and that. And you just, you know, and then the key thing that I had to remember to do was listen intently. So if you can be a good asker of questions and then be an intent listener, and then listen for things you can ask another question about in their answer, you know, you will
Mm.
guide the conversation. You will be in control of the conversation. The person who asks the most questions is the person in charge of the conversation. Let that sink in a little bit. The person who asks the most questions, that's the person who's in control of the conversation. So if you get good at that, you will guide the conversation. You won't say a thing, hardly at all, except ask a question. And then these people just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And you know what they will say about you? That person's a great conversationalist. And you
Yeah.
said 10 words.
You said 10 words the whole time. They talk the whole time. But you know what? That's what people love to do.
They do. They want to talk about themselves. And if you can encourage them to talk about themselves, ask them questions about themselves, and then encourage them to talk, you know, it's going to take some practice to get
Yep.
good at it.
It's yeah, it's
Nothing
so
comes
true.
easy. But oh, Akil, are you telling me to calm down? I'm sorry. I get excited when I go with revelations, and because I have personal experience with this just recently, like the other
Mhm.
day, I dealt with this and I, you know, remembered something and I fixed it and it worked. and it's totally the same situation. And I was like, oh yeah, that's really cool. But anyway, so that's the first thing. Get good at asking questions and get good at listening. And then the next thing is, have you ever heard of shadow boxing? Ryan, you've heard of shadow boxing, I'm sure.
Yes, I know shadow boxing.
Shadow boxing is when, like you're practicing, you're like, this is for boxers, obviously for fighters. What they will do is they'll stand and look at themselves in the mirror, and they will throw punches and all this kind of stuff, right? And that's how they will practice. Part of that is because you learn better when you're in the stress-free environment. You learn faster when the pressure's on. Like, you throw somebody in the water with it's deep water over their head, they don't know how to swim, then they're going to, oh my gosh, they're going to struggle to survive, and they're going to somehow make it to shore. So they're going to learn how to swim as long as it's not too far out, obviously. Yeah. But, they're going to learn how to swim really quick, but they're not going to learn how to swim properly.
Right.
They're going to learn a whole bunch of just surviving, like, that's the pressure's on. They're just doing whatever it takes to not die. But if you can learn in a stress-free environment, then you will learn more and you'll be more comfortable when the actual situation happens. That's the thing with shadow boxing. So what you can do in this particular situation, think shadow boxing for this. And what I want you to do is, when you're by yourself, imagine yourself in a crowd of people. Imagine yourself walking through the crowd of people, and just mingling with people. Imagine those people smiling at you and laughing and being responsive to your questions. You're asking smart questions. You do all this stuff. Imagine all this going on, and act it out. It's fun. You're by yourself. Who cares? Nobody's watching.
Do the different voices for people. It's fun that way.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Oh, you're from Russia. Wait, what part of Russia? Never heard of it. All right.
Never heard of it. Where is that? It's up north.
It's up north. Well, all of Russia is up north, really. So
we have the snow.
Use imagination. We have snow and salt. We have lots of salt. Can't tell. Even with snow dry, you still can't really see anything but white because so much salt. It's funny.
He's everywhere.
It's everywhere. They put it. I don't know why they put it in the ocean when they made the ocean, but it ended up on my land. Sorry, getting carried away.
But do that. Think shadow boxing. Think practice when you're by yourself. In the stress-free environment. Practice mingling by yourself. And what's that going to look like? And visualize it being successful. When you're there, and it will make you so much more comfortable. And then when you can learn to start asking some questions, I tell you, it's game over. You're going to just you won't be worried about it at all anymore. And sometimes people will blow you off anyway and be like, you might be like, how's it going today?
Yeah.
And then that's your cue to find a different person to talk to. Don't try and draw blood from a stone, but find somebody responsive. And what you'll find is, when you ask a question to someone, and you ask that question and it's something that's important to them, man, you can totally light them up, and they will talk.
They will talk. So will I. Every one of us does that.
Yes. And then your problem is going to be, here's the problem. Your new problem isn't going to be feeling awkward and wondering how this cycle, this breaking the cycle. The new problem is going to be, how do I end the conversation without being rude? Because I've been listening to this guy talk about insurance for 10 minutes. And my kid wants a hot dog and he needs my help.
Yep.
So yeah, so then you have to get good at tactfully removing yourself from conversations.
Tact, prudence.
Yes. So
But yeah, that's a whole other thing. I don't
it
know.
is tact. Well, I'm
Gotta
sure
get
we'll
there.
handle tact on one of these shows at some point. But yeah,
Yeah.
but seriously, everything Ryan said, plus get good at asking questions and then practice when you're by yourself. Practice being in the environment. Imagine the environment when you're by yourself because then it's stress free. You can make a mistake and it doesn't matter. You can kind of think about what you're going to say, all these kinds of different things, but always focus on asking questions and getting other people to talk. And then your conversational abilities, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It'll be
Hmm.
awesome. So thank you so much for posting that. Very drawn out. I really, really, really appreciate that you took the time to post that and you found the website and you did it right there.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah. One thing you can do also for yourself is don't worry about whether they're going to be your friend or not.
Mm-hmm.
Just be their friend. I remember Joe talking to me once, and he said something along the lines of, when we're kids, we often say, "Hey, will you be my friend? Will you be my friend?" And that's so backwards because you don't ask someone to be your friend. Like, "Hey, we've never met before, but will you make a lifelong commitment to, always like, you know, be on my side and be good to me and do what's best for me and that sort of thing." um it's like, no, you don't ask someone to do that. That's what you're saying when you say, will you be my friend? No, you just be their friend. You go up to somebody imagining you're already their friend rather than wondering constantly, I hope they're my friend. I hope they see me as a good person. I hope they, if you can take yourself out of the equation and just focus on them, it goes so much smoother. Because what is a relationship anyways? If you're trying to form a relationship with somebody, it's because you're trying to um, build them up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point of friendship, is to build another person up. So if you're going into a conversation and you're worried about yourself, then you're worried about the wrong person in the relationship. Because that's, if you go to a relationship and it's all about you, then you're not in a relationship at all. You're just using them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of times, unfortunately, what some people's concept of love is, and what they experience in their relationships when they date other people and they find out that the other person did it all for them and it was never about you or whatever. So just make sure you focus on them. I think that if your heart is in that place, and I think everything should go smoothly for you. Um, but yeah, Joe said, try not to focus on yourself. It's what all of us do. Um,
Mm-hmm. We
but
do.
it's backwards. So
And what
just
you'll have happen if you're like me, you suffer from diarrhea of the mouth.
gross. That's disgusting. You puke all the time? No.
No, well, it's kind of what makes us good on talk shows is because we can talk and talk and talk for a
Mm.
long time about stuff, you know. But when you're in a conversation, what'll happen is I'll be talking to somebody about something, and then I'll see their eyes start to wander or glaze a little bit, or they'll start to shift in a little bit and look around. And I know at that moment, what I'm doing is boring them. So I quickly need to turn it into a question or change the subject and get off of myself and onto something about them. Ask a question about them and get them talking about themselves again. So like that's something to pay attention to. And these are all things, as you get better and as you do it more and more and it's I tell you, when you take what Ryan talked about and you put that in your heart, the thing about trying to make other people feel good about themselves when they're in your presence, a whole new world opens up to you when you're around other people. It's amazing. It's like this whole, you never knew it existed. It's like the sun comes out again and you're like, what just happened,
I thought there were only clouds left.
I know. I live in mid-Michigan. That's all we have are
We
clouds
only
here.
have clouds here. Yeah.
That's it.
Sometimes.
Yeah, when the sun comes out, it's like, what?
Yeah.
No way.
Because Michigan is, I believe, the second cloudiest state in all of the United States, only trumped by Washington.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
So we would be good to have vampires.
We have 10 days of sun. That's it.
10 days of sun.
In a whole year, we have 10 days of sun.
Hmm.
That's our average. That's Michigan.
Yay, us.
If any of you understand that, that's what we think is normal. And so when other people talk about, oh, it's a cloudy day, it's terrible, and we're like, what are you talking about? Every day is a cloudy day, and that's okay. Like, that's fine. That's normal.
Right. Cohagen 823 is in Washington.
Huh? There's 23?
Cohagen 823 is in Washington.
Oh. Wow.
Hey, so you are in a cloudier place than us. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all vitamin D deprived. Oh, for sure.
That's why we put it in our milk.
Yeah, that's why we actually have vitamin D milk. Yeah. Concentrated vitamin D in our milk.
Yep.
The only way.
Yep. The rain is nice. I actually am
so
used to it. I like it cloudy. I do enjoy it.
Yeah. Actually, I prefer it cloudy a lot of times because then when you're driving around, it doesn't hurt your eyes.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Yeah.
So, anyways, that's an entirely different conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Very drawn out. I'm really glad you showed up so we could get to your topic.
Yeah, we were asking for you earlier on the stream, but you weren't here. But I'm glad you showed up. Mm-hmm. So thanks.
Yeah, that was great. And we've got Maria Senpai. We've got one from you to do next time, and Anna Ports.
Really?
It's Anna P on here.
Well, actually, it's Anna, by the way.
Anna.
So we were calling her Anna, and then for some reason, we got the message that it was Anna. And so we started calling her Anna. Then we talked to her again, and she's Hispanic. And she said
Anna?
That's pronounced as Anna. And I'm like, oh, well, we were saying it right from the beginning. So it's Anna.
Well, Anna, we see you've posted in the topics on the website. Thank you for your post. And next time we are here and you are here, we will handle that, because that looks like a very, very good situation to talk about. It's one that's near and dear to our hearts because it's about music. And yeah, it's going to be a good one. So thank you everybody for your posts, and thank you for everybody in the chat. You guys have been just absolutely astounding today. I mean, you always are, but today even more so. You guys were so helpful and so nice and positive and wonderful. Man, I can't talk about our community enough. If you are not a member at bss.studio, you need to go there and become one, and
you're a big
get involved in the forums. What's that?
Because you're a big sinner for not being there already. No, I'm a big sinner for not being there enough.
Yeah, totally, man. Like, I'm like, where's Ryan?
Yeah, hold on. Let me post something real quick in the chat. I need to get my daily thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna post something in the chat too.
I put a po-chart there. I put a po-chart for everyone to look at.
What? Wait a second. Why? Chat. Yeah.
Chat. Good point, Joe. Good point. Well played. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. We love you. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your life and evening and every other thing you have going on.
Until Friday, when you're going to come back and be here.
Yeah, but we don't want you to have a bad time on Friday. So when we say until Friday, we don't mean have a good life until it becomes Friday and then have it terrible. We're just saying,
have a
good life and we'll see you again on Friday.
Yes, and then continue to have a wonderful life as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you guys are awesome, and we love you.
Bye bye.
Thanks again, guys.